Hey guys, we're gonna start looking at individual characters and build teams around them. We're gonna showcase the best teams for each individual character, starting off with the newest edition that just released in Reverse 1999, which is Liang. The best team for Liang is already showcased in the game, and that is under her survey. And there you can see that the best team in the game for her is 37 as the main DPS, Liang as the sub DPS, Flutterpage as the support, and Fatutu as the healer. Before we jump into actual gameplay, let me explain first why this team is so great, what the rotations are, how this works, so we can actually understand what is going on in the battle and why everyone is casting follow-up attacks left, right and center. The first thing that we have to take a look at is Liang herself and how she exactly functioned in this team as a sub DPS. Now I have to make a quick note that in case you would have her portraits, that would change the rotation and how she is played a little bit, but more on that when we actually jump into battle, because they have Liang at her portrait too, and yeah, we will talk about that when it's time. Now let's pretend we just pulled Liang, we want to play her, we want to build a team around her, and we don't have any portraits. Alright, so in that case the important part is that we would start the battle with 3 Moxie. We enter the battle with Moxie plus 3. That means that we would only have to cast 2 incantations to unlock our ultimate, which is a pretty good support ability, and it would enhance our incantations further. Now, how we actually play Liang is that in the first round, since we start with Moxie plus 3, we want to cast 2 incantations with her straight out of the gate, so that in round 2 we have her ultimate unlocked and we can use that one. So this incantation number 1 here, called Bless Life, that is her most important incantation. That is the most important part about her kit. Yes, this is even more important than the ultimate herself. And why is that? That is because you gain a 1 target buff for 1 round that grants Guardian's Blessing, and you will always use this on your main DPS, which is in our case 37. That is simply because of some reasons. What is Guardian's Blessing? Damage dealt plus 25%, damage taken reduction plus 25%. Perfect. Our main DPS, which is 37, now deals more damage, and she is on the squishier side of things, so damage taken reduction is optimal for her. The more important part though, the key factor here, is that after attacking or being attacked, 37 that is, at the end of the round, Liang casts 1 rank 1 incantation number 2 on the target. And that is exactly what we want, because we want to trigger as many follow-up attacks as possible, because this is how this team comes to fruition and how everything synergizes. You will realize why at the end of this guide. So her incantation number 2 that you will cast for free by buffing your main DPS. So you use Bless Life on 37, then you proceed to attack with 37, so that Liang casts a follow-up attack. This is how this goes. Her incantation number 2, let's take a look at what it actually does. It's a 1 target attack, it deals damage, and it extends the duration of all Guardians Resolve by 1 round. That is just a bonus effect, that is not what matters, this Guardian's Resolve here. What matters is just that we deal a little bit of extra damage by using a follow-up attack. And of course, don't forget, we grant our main DPS more damage, and so on and so forth, right? You got the point. Now, what Guardian's Resolve actually is more damage taken reduction. And you will stack this by using your ultimate, which you will unlock for free. Yeah, I mean, semi for free, because you have to use this Bless Life incantation every single turn. In case you wouldn't have it in your hand, you reroll using your melody. That is very, very, very important. This is how these teams function. So next up, let's take a look at Fatutu real quick. And here we have Fatutu. Why she is so beneficial for every single team. I mean, you know that by now. You don't live under a rock, I guess. And just in case you wouldn't know, check out my How to Play Fatutu guide. The reason why she is extra nice for this specific team is because of the effect that whenever applying or retrieving 7 shells, she casts a follow-up attack. So what we want to do is we want to apply these shells, spirit shells in fact, to our opponent, so that when this opponent gets attacked, these shells get retrieved and we apply them in the first place, right? And if the number would be 7, from applying these shells or retrieving these shells, we cast a follow-up attack. That's the whole point. And in order to do that, we use her incantation number 2 called Unmendable Cracks, because this applies 3 spirit shells. And on top of that, even it dispels like debuffs from your entire team. That is really, really awesome. But it is all about this applying and retrieving shells to cast that follow-up attack. And to understand why it is so very beneficial to cast these follow-up attacks with Liang, with Fatutu, and 37 also has a follow-up attack. That, yeah, you should be aware that 37 casts her follow-up attack when she's at 5 Eureka. And this will add up and make Flutterpage go crazy. Why is that? Let's take a look at Flutterpage real quick. So why is Flutterpage so extremely good for this specific team? That is because, as we just figured out, our team is all about casting follow-up attacks, right? So what Flutterpage does is, every time one of her allies uses an extra action, Flutterpage will spend Eureka and also perform a follow-up attack. How strong this follow-up attack will be depends on how many stacks of Gust she has. But this is rather not important. The most important part is that she, whenever one of your allies casts a follow-up attack, Flutterpage also casts a follow-up attack. That is very, very key. Of course, you can make them stronger by gaining the Gust, right? The stacks of Gust, by using your incantation number 2 with Flutterpage. But the more important part, and why Flutterpage is so good and what makes Flutterpage so unique, is not only that she follows up with a follow-up attack on follow-up attacks, but she also makes it so that your team gains +1 AP. You see this here? Positive status, +1 AP for the round when you use your incantation number 1. And that is what you always want to do, because that frees up the spot that you would always use every single round with Liang's incantation number 1. And that is how the team works. Let's go over the exact rotation right now. So how would this rotation actually look like? Remember, always 2 things. We want to use Liang's incantation number 1 every time, every turn. And we want to use Flutterpage's incantation number 1 as well to increase our AP every single turn. Plus, remember Liang's insight, we start with Moxie +3. So in the first turn, we want to use 2 incantations with Liang to obtain ourselves the ultimate for round number 2. So we have to make sure we get all of this done. And how this would work is you can use Flutterpage's incantation number 1, so AP +1 for next round. Then you can use Liang's buff, her incantation number 1, onto your main DPS, so Liang does a follow-up attack whenever your main DPS attacks. That means we want to actually attack with our main DPS, so Liang does that follow-up attack like right out of the gate. And now there's only one thing left, and that is that we need the second Moxie for Liang, so we use her incantation number 2, and that's the rotation for turn number 1. And for round number 2, now we have access to Liang's ultimate, which we immediately want to use because it would grant us beneficial effects. So that's what we're gonna use first. Now we want to generate shells for Fatutu to apply them, and then when we attack the target that we applied them to, it would retrieve their shells. And remember, whenever we applied 7 shells or retrieved 7 shells in total, Fatutu casts a follow-up attack. So we want to do that first. Then we always, every single turn, want to apply the buff from Liang Yue. So that is what we're gonna do on our main DPS again. If in case, like let's say you wouldn't have that incantation number 1, the buff from Liang, you would always reroll using your melody. Keep that in mind always. This is very, very important. Now that we have applied the buff again to our main DPS, we're gonna attack with our main DPS that retrieves shells, that heals our entire enemy team because we retrieve these shells. And Liang would now use a follow-up attack, which would lead to Flutterpage also using a follow-up attack. And if we can, we want to gain the AP plus from Flutterpage. Like, this is also something that we want to do every single turn. You buff your main DPS, you attack with your main DPS, you gain the AP plus 1 every turn, if you can, right? Also apply shells. That is not very necessary every single turn. You have to keep an eye on how many shells are actually on the enemy. And that's what you want to do every turn. Now, this might not be possible every single turn. For example, like maybe you don't have any incantation for your main DPS, right? Or you don't even have the buff. If you don't have the buff, you have to reroll so you get it. That is like the key thing, right? Yeah, if you don't have an incantation with your main DPS, then you can gain gust, excuse me, with Flutterpage. Or you can use the buff from Fatutu, right? So the damage is spread all across your team and it heals. Why not? It retrieves shells as well. She will do a follow-up attack. Then a Flutterpage will do a follow-up attack. You know how this goes? Maybe you don't have access to the AP+. Yeah, then generate gusts, right? Or whatever. Like, the most important thing that you have to do every single turn is use the buff on your main DPS and attack with your main DPS. If you can't, right? Attack with your main DPS, you use the buff onto someone that you can attack with, like Flutterpage, for example. Maybe even onto Fatutu before you apply the shells, right? But this is the key. The AP plus and the buff from Liang. Those two incantations are the key factor to play this team to its maximum efficiency, and you constantly will trigger follow-up attacks from Liang, from 37, Flutterpage will go nuts, Fatutu, everyone will do follow-up attacks. And this is how the general rotations go for this team. Now we can go and take a look into action, because they gave Fatutu Portrait 2, and this will change the rotation just a little bit, but you will see everything in action right now. So let's jump right into battle and see how everything looks in action, even with her portraits unlocked. I don't know exactly how many portraits they gave Liang here, but all that matters is her portrait too. So remember, always use her ult first for the beneficial effects. Then we figured out that we always want to use her buff incantation every single turn on the main DPS. Then we have to attack with the main DPS to trigger Liang's extra attack. And we want to gain AP plus for the next round, so that's exactly what we're gonna do. And now you can see that we will apply the buff to our main DPS. Our main DPS will attack. Here, buff, attack. Now Liang attacks with the follow-up attack. There you go. And that's what you want to do every single turn. See, since we triggered that follow-up attack, Flutter Page also does a follow-up attack. And we now gain AP+, so we have room for even more. And you can already see our hand here. What do we want to do every turn? Exactly. We want to use Liang's buff incantation. We don't have it. That means we use our melody to reroll our hand and pray we get it. There we go. We got it. That is what we want to use. Now on the second turn, we want to apply shells with Fatutu to apply and retrieve them with further attacks to have Fatutu trigger her follow-up attack as well. So we use our buff onto our main DPS, we attack with our main DPS and we get AP for next round. Now we have an additional AP that we can use for whatever the situation would throw us at, right? We can use the buff with Fatutu to lower our damage income. We could produce a general like Moxie for whatever we want, right? That doesn't matter. The most beneficial thing though is to generate Gust with Flutter Page. So that's what we're gonna do because we don't need anything else in this situation. Yeah, thanks to us having the portraits for Liang, we had her ultimate and this led to us not only having additional follow-up attacks, which you can see that poisoned and burned the entire enemy team, but also all our incantations ranked up, you know. So Liang works very well in follow-up attack teams. Because she is kind of a support. She not only does she deal quite some damage, but she also is a support and that ranks up and gains our incantations beneficial effects. As you just saw, everything ranked up and we triggered another follow-up attack. All thanks to that ultimate. So there we go. Again, we have an ultimate unlocked. We want to use this for especially the one for Flutter Page. Then we go with our general rotation. We use Liang's buff onto our main DPS, we attack with our main DPS, we get AP for next round, and now this last one we can do whatever we want, whatever we have, whatever the situation would require. Now here I don't need to lower our damage income, I would now just generate more Moxie for Liang because that is the most beneficial thing in this situation. So I do just that. And there you go. Like, see, again, all our incantations are ranked up. We unlock Moxie, we trigger follow-up attacks, like everything. This is how this team synergizes very well together and looks in action. So, yeah, now you have basically seen everything you need to know, everything that you need to see. This is what you wanna repeat every single turn. Use Liang's buff, attack with the main DPS, AP plus for next round. Right? That's pretty much all there is. And you always have room to adapt to the situation with your last incantation. Again, remember that if you don't have Liang's buff incantation in your hand, you reroll using your melody. And that's the team, that's how it plays. See, this team kinda plays itself for 30 minutes. I don't even have to press any buttons because follow-up attack after follow-up attack after follow-up attack, because everything we do synergizes beautiful with each other. So here again, we apply shells, we buff our main DPS, we attack with our main DPS, we gain AP plus, we don't have that, so we go for raw damage output here, because we can, why not, right? Reroll your hand only if you don't have Liang's buff. If you don't have the AP plus for next round, it's not that big of a deal. Only Liang's incantation is a big deal. The buff incantation. And that's it, yeah, let's finish this battle out, and maybe there will be more things that come up to explain. Sometimes you have 2 ultimates ready in one turn, what ultimate would you use and when, but yeah, it is Like, the most important stuff here is explained. There we go, now we have 2 ultimates, and we can talk about that right now. You always want to use Liang's ult first, is what I say, but you can also use 37's ultimate. So now you see our, yeah, see, this is a very good situation here, because you can see I have Liang's buff, but I cannot use the buff because I can't attack, right, with anything. I mean, I could use it on Fatuto and then use her ult to attack, or use the incantation on myself even. Use it on Liang, then use her ult. That is what you should do in this very specific situation here, because you cannot attack with anything. So you use it on Liang herself, then use her ult, and go from there, right? I don't have anything else to do, so I will just press all the ultimates. And that's it. See, I even can use Fatuto's buff, because why not, you know? Yeah, see, buff her, use her ultimate, and she should do a follow-up attack, because she had her buff, which attacked, right? Is that how that works? Yeah, see, this is exactly how it works. So this is always how you would do it. That was a very good example, because this was a very specific situation right there, but yeah. You can see, you have to wing it. If you understand how everything works, how everything triggers, you will figure out every single situation, no problem. And yeah, I explained everything in this guide, so if you followed along, you should honestly be an expert in playing this team. It's not that hard. It for the most part, plays itself if you do everything correct. Yeah, buff main DPS, attack with main DPS, and then go from there. Yeah, first you can apply shells, right? So apply shells. I can't attack with main DPS. That's what you always have to keep an eye on. So again, if you can't attack with your main DPS, use it on whatever you can attack with. That will most of the times be Liang herself. So, buff on Liang. You could apply shells here first. Let's apply shells. Use buff. Attack with whoever has the buff. And go from there. Attack with her again. Generate some gust for Flutter Page. And that's the battle.
Be careful.
And there you go. That was the best team in the game that is possible to build around Liang Yuan. There's one more team that we could go for with Jiunangzhe, Pickles, Liang and Fatuto, or any healer, but yeah, we will cover this at another time. This video is already long enough. I hope that was informative and fun. If you like reverse 1999 content in general, please consider leaving a follow on my channel. I would really appreciate that. But until next time, take care of yourselves, have a great day, and we love this game.